All right, we are live. Welcome to Reformgelical, where the Reformed and Evangelicals meet. We have a special guest on today. We have Tom Buck. Tom, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I was on the show last time for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, I think for the last month, we're all special guests on this show. Nobody's seen us for like a month.
That's true. No day is guaranteed to us, and I'm learning that more and more with technology. We are live streaming on our Reformgelical Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. So welcome. We're doing the next 2 weeks, because we've had these technical difficulties, of just making it free for everybody. If you have any comments or questions and want to interact, feel free to comment wherever you're listening, and we will see them in our little dashboard that we got here and hopefully integrate like we normally do on the shows for Patreon subscribers. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And we'll get going. So Tom, would you like to give a little high-level overview of yourself and how great you are?
Well, first of all, you should tell them the truth, that the reason you're not charging anybody and everyth's free right now is you knew you couldn't get anybody to pay to watch the show. So I think that's the real reason. But I'll give a little bit of the background. I'm originally from Tennessee. You asked me earlier if I was from Florida. I pastored in Florida for 12 years, but I'm originally from Tennessee. And as all Tennesseans do, we make it to Texas as quickly as we can. And we get down here to help them out. There would be no Texas if it weren't for Tennesseans. That's how I see it. But anyway, I grew up in East Tennessee, Southern Baptist Church, fairly liberal, definitely not conservative. Southern Baptist area. The people in the church were, but there was the liberal influences that were among pastors that graduated from Southern Baptist Seminary. So I made a decision that I didn't want to go to Southern Baptist Seminary. I wanted to remain Southern Baptist, but I didn't want to deal with all of the liberalism that was in there. This was early 80s. Okay. And so I went to Moody Bible Institute, mainly because out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, there was WMBI, and I heard those guys, how they handled the Bible, and I was so impressed with that. They just preached the Word of God verse by verse. I wanted to go where they went. So I went to Moody, and then I ended up going to Dallas Seminary because that's kind of the path of a lot of people that go to Moody. Went there, and I loved it there because I studied Greek under Dan Wallace and did Bible exposition there, and it was a great time. Then I went to Florida to pastor as a senior pastor for 12 years, and then now I've been here for 14. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but I came to First Baptist of Lindale. My wife and I have been married for 32 years.
Wow,
and it'll be 33 this July, actually. And we have 3 children. We have a 19-year-old son, a 15-year-old daughter, and a 14-year-old son. So
I heard that you were a troublemaker. Is that accurate?
Well, I wasn't until James White called me that, and he would, I just say whatever James tells me to say. That's
I've heard that too. Yeah.
It's true.
As long as you don't wear what he tells you to wear, because his sweaters are atrocious.
Well, James is talking to me right now. People don't know this, but he's telling me what to say, and I'll.
That's enough of that.
And you're also on or work with G3 on the expository workshops. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Josh Weiss asked me last year to come on, and they were moving towards the G3 ministries, moving away from just a conference and wanting to develop good materials and tools for the local church. And one of the things that he's committed to, as I am, is we believe as goes the pulpit, goes the church. And so he asked me if I would come on because I'd had extensive experience in working in expository workshops. And so he asked me to come and be the director for G3. So our first workshop was in Atlanta. And then our next workshop was supposed to be in a few weeks with Bodie. But we're probably going to have to make an adjustment there with everything that's going on. Then we have 3 workshops, Lord willing, in the fall. We'll see how things go with that. But what we do is we come and we study a book of the Bible. We choose, and each workshop is a different genre. So you learn how to do exposition from not just didactic literature, but you learn how to preach expositorily from Gospels narrative, obviously poetry,
Mm-hmm.
so forth and so on. And there is a difference in how you should handle narrative and preaching it and understanding that. So the small groups are made up of instruction times and then small group times where each guy comes and brings work on a couple of pericopes that we assign them, and then we work together through the book through the 3 days. It's really a great time together.
That's great. I never realized how important it is to understand how to study the Bible until I still really started engaging on Twitter to the Christian community. then I saw a big need.
Yeah, and I think this is this is an important topic right now because you've got issues about hermeneutics now are being challenged that, we really can't understand the Bible unless we've got, and this maybe they would probably say this is an overstatement, so let me be as gracious as I can. That if you really want to understand the Bible in all its fullness, you need to have the perspectives of multiple ethnicities in the room. And if all you're talking about is perspectives, okay, that could be helpful to one degree or another for application particularly. But if you're talking about hermeneutics, and that's the word they're using, like African hermeneutics, Latino hermeneutics, we're not teaching an Anglo hermeneutic. They can argue all they want to that that's what we're doing. It's not true, because if you want to say the ethnicity or culture, it depends on what book you're in. So I'm in a Middle Eastern hermeneutic, if you will, from the perspective of the original author, and so that's what matters. So when I'm looking at the Old Testament, I understand the background there and so forth and so forth and so on, the context there. But I don't get how you take an African hermeneutic and read the book of Exodus off that.
What's so sneaky about it, and I'm not saying that people that are saying this are trying to be sneaky, but there is an element of truth there, like you said. I mean, if we've got some people that have intimate knowledge of Middle Eastern culture and things of that nature, that could be helpful to understand certain things from the Bible, because I'm so disconnected from the context there.
Right.
But that's a lot different than saying, well, there's this Latino hermeneutic that I apply that helps me understand things differently. And so we need all of the understandings together to really get it. That's a very different kind of statement, I think, at least.
Let me give you a quick example. Let's take the lost son. Okay. There's so much Middle Eastern contextual things that are going on there, historical context that's going on. So you take the example of the father running. The father would have, in that culture, would have worn a long robe, and for him to run, he would have had to have lifted his robe up and ran with his bare legs. That was a very shameful thing to do in that culture. Okay, that can begin to help us understand something. But if a Latino or an African or a hillbilly from Tennessee like myself comes in and says, let me tell you what that means. What that means is back in Tennessee, if you lift up your skirt, it means, that's ridiculous.
Right.
And even if you go that, hey, that's an insight. It's not an insight. Well, it may be an insight, but it's not a true insight.
Yeah.
And so that's why we've got to go back to the original authors. I don't understand this. It's not an Anglo hermeneutic.
Right. The other interesting thing I think about that, and I think of this sometimes, is that, the Bible was written by certain people in certain ethnicities, and it was written to certain people of certain ethnicities. Mm-hmm. And so this idea that you have to have the complete colors of the rainbow to fully understand it. I mean, how could people in the initial context have fully understood it, because they never met a Puerto Rican. They never met an Anglo-Saxon. I mean, they've never. There's lots of people they've never met. So it's just like, it's almost like, well, this is the first time we can actually understand the Bible and history, because we've got planes that can go from place to place in a few hours.
Right. The text can never mean what it never meant.
Right.
And that's the whole issue. Then you take it through the grid of application. Tim Chalice said a good thing about this. I thought was helpful. He was talking about how they have a lot of different ethnicities up in Toronto and in his church. They have the benefit of that. We don't have that in East Texas, and it's not because we don't want to reach people of different ethnicities. It's that if I can find one, I'll.
You would say that.
Of course, I would say that. But I haven't seen any Puerto Ricans around here. But anyway, but he talked about how that when it came to hospitality, how that they learned from some of the different cultures about what hospitality looks like. Well, that's application, and that's wonderful. I think we can learn those things,
Right.
and that can be helpful to us in the body of Christ. But if I never see someone from a particular part of the world who has a wonderful concept of hospitality, that doesn't mean that I can't learn what that text means or can't practice it in a biblical way that pleases the Lord, even if I never meet them. So you have, I asked the other day on Twitter, I didn't get a response, oddly enough, but I asked the other day from the president of Southeastern, Danny Aiken, and I could have asked him privately, but the reason I asked him publicly is not because I wanted to get into a Twitter fight. It's because I thought it was something that people need to hear publicly. It needs to be interacted on. And the question I asked was, because he talked about Revelation 5, the church needs to look like Revelation 5. What do you mean by that? When you say that, do you mean my local church? Because if you mean my local church, then we will never look like Revelation 5. I mean, there's not enough. We just don't have that many ethnicities around here. If I go to our partners we have in India that are doing indigenous missions there, we have indigenous missionaries that are there. I guarantee I've been there multiple times. You don't have a lot of people that are different ethnicities. Can they never be a church then the way it should be because they can't fulfill Revelation 5? Of course, he didn't answer. But this is very confusing the way that we're talking about it.
So you're a really big fan of Resolution 9 and critical race theory being introduced. That's what I'm picking up here.
Yeah, I love that. I'm working on getting it engraved to put it on the wall of my office. So
I'm expecting a tattoo on your arm or something to that effect, just to really commit. No. So can I ask though, like, what do you think about this whole play that's been happening with the implementation of it, with just people not really wanting to answer and talk about it and engage, like you're saying, that you're not even getting a response? Like, what do you think's going on with this?
What particularly, the Resolution 9 or what in particular?
It seems to me that there's this like implementation of it and this mindset from leadership in the SBC that is kind of trying to do this in closed doors and just kind of sneak it through.
Yeah.
And they don't really want to have an open dialogue and kind of debate about it. They want to just have it their way. And it seems kind of strange to have that mindset in the church from someone from the outside.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what to think completely. There are days I think one way, days I think another. These are guys that are brothers in Christ whom I love. Mm-hmm. I think Danny Aiken's a wonderful, godly Christian man. Walter Strickland, I've met with him and on multiple times. I believe he's a godly, wonderful Christian man. He's one of the kindest, most gentle, loving men that I've ever met. Mm-hmm. And when I'm with him, he comes across to me as genuine. I have friends who say, I'm being snowed by a variety of people. But here's the way I'm going to live life. I'm going to live life where that I'm going to take people at their word and I'm going to go as far as I can. I'm going to trust them as far as I can until I'm absolutely proven different. So I'll say that I have some serious concerns. I think that there are I'm going to call them honest mistakes in some places. I think some other places aren't. And we could talk about, woke church, Eric Mason. I think he has an agenda. There's others do. But I'm really good friends with Dwight McKissick. We're on opposite ends of the spectrum regarding of what we think about these things. Now, I respect Dwight far more than I do some people because he'll tell you exactly what he believes to your face. He'll sit down at the table and tell you that. He'll tell you that on Twitter. It's one of the ways that I like the guy. I would say I love the man. I really do. I love sitting down and having dinner with him. There's some people who hate me because I do that. Mm-hmm. He's the enemy. But I can't live life that way. So I think there's a lot of honest mistakes that are being made, but I do believe, if at the very least, there is a ivory tower, almost looking down your nose at the plebes that we are, because I've had some of these guys, and I won't even mention names at this part, but privately tell me, Pastor, you just need to go do your little thing, and leave the hard thinking up to us. Up here in the seminary land. Mm-hmm. And that's not Danny Aiken or anybody like that, but it is somebody that is a little bit higher up. So I think that I'm concerned about this whole kingdom diversity thing. I think they mean well. I really do. But you know what? A lot of bad stuff happens from good intentions. A lot of bad stuff happens from people that mean well. I think we're seeing that right now in this coronavirus thing.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of well-meaning things that are going to bring about tragic results. And I think that's the same thing with this kingdom diversity stuff. And it's their followers that I'm more afraid of than even them, where they're taking it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
yeah,
I don't like the secrecy.
The thing that worries me the most about this diversity push is what the logical conclusions take us, where they take us. Because, like, what are they expecting us to do? Are we supposed to build the church? Are we responsible for who gets saved? Are we the ones responsible for who God brings into the local body of the church? That starts getting really scary when you start thinking through things that way. It's almost starting to think completely unbiblically about how God builds his church and how he uses us. And that's the thing.
A lot of Southern Baptist thinking, though, brother, that we're the ones that are doing it. I mean, attraction ministries and stuff like that, where they believe that that's what they're supposed to be doing. So what surprises me is when you see it come out of guys that are Reformed, like myself and others. When that's what's shocking to me, that you see it coming out of there. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me that this is caught on in the Southern Baptist Convention. It surprises me who it's caught on with.
Interesting. So do you have any ideas of what can be done in the SBC to kind of discuss this, bring it out to light, address the leadership issues? Or is this something you think that just needs to run its course and see where the chips fall?
I used to think run its course, but I think that, okay, let me tell you the underlying thing driving a lot of this. It's pragmatism. I sat in a room with one of the men with a group of men when we did the social justice statement. One of those men, I won't say who he is, but you would know his name if I told you his name, obviously. But he said that the Southern Baptist Convention is pragmatic to the bone. And wow. He's absolutely correct. I have had the same conversation with someone who isn't in the room that's high up in the Southern Baptist Convention. He's told me the same thing, that the problem here is pragmatism. I mean, high up in the convention. Mm-hmm. And we know that. And so pragmatism is kind of the undergirding thing. This has come in on that because this is a pragmatic way. You have the white guilt driving this. That yes, we have a history. There's no doubt of that. It's an awful history. I grew up with a pastor who used the N-word in the church. I heard him use the N-word growing up. This is not something that hasn't happened. Mm-hmm. The issue is, how do we go about addressing it? And they want to do it in this pragmatic fashion, and that's why it's catching on. The problem is that we're dealing with a nuclear bomb when we're dealing with this kind of stuff. That's going to have a far more reaching effect and destruction than what we see take place in the normal pragmatic movements that go through the Southern Baptist Convention. These movements come and go. This one's going to come and stay.
Yeah. Well, one of the first comments I think I made, when I went public with my YouTube channel and stuff, was that this social justice thing means a lot of people owe the attractional church folks a big apology, because it's the same line of thinking ultimately. And I think that pragmatism does kind of slip out sometimes when you get someone that's typically conservative, and you ask them why they're involved in this, and when they're kind of on the defensive, sometimes this will slip out. I remember one guy, I'm not going to name him because I'm not 100% sure it was him, but I think it was, said that one of the reasons why he talks so much about race and slavery and these kinds of issues is because he doesn't want his children or his grandchildren to be pushed into the arms of the LGBT community, because they're talking about that stuff. And it's like, well, if I don't talk about that, then he's going to go to them and he's going to learn about this racism stuff from them. And, I don't know, maybe he'll influence them with LGBT stuff too. And so there's a bit of pragmatism at work. He's kind of acknowledging that in his opinion, this is a strategy to not, it's like almost like a strategy to get, maybe I'll go a little woke so that my family and my followers don't go all the way woke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of guilt that's driving this thing. I talk to pastors all the time that you can hear hear it in their voices. Sometimes it's not even their own guilt. They're too young to have guilt.
Right.
They weren't around like I was when this kind of stuff was going on. Same issue is with homosexuality, and I'm not going to shift the gear there, but let me just say this real quickly. I grew up when homosexuals were bashed from the pulpit. I was ashamed at how pastors talked about that. And so 25 years ago, when I went into the senior pastorate, I made it very clear that we were never going to talk about homosexuals in that way, because we want to offer the hope of the gospel that there can be transformation.
Amen.
And you can't do that when you're bashing people rather than confronting sin that they're in and dealing with that. So now they've swung the pendulum the other way. And I think that's the same thing we're having with the issue of race, take the issue of sexual abuse, all of these things. We're moving into how we're dealing with this, where we're not even applying the gospel in the right way to it.
Yeah. And just the note for those who are going to be listening on the podcast, AD got really uncomfortable and got up out of his seat as soon as Tom Buck said homosexual, just for the record.
Yeah, I noticed that. So, but anyway.
But the biggest problem I have with this pragmatism is push. To me, it just seems like we're discrediting the gospel, where if it's not enough to clear us of our guilt or our ancestors' guilt, then why would I, as a non-Christian, believe that the gospel can save me from my sins and that can regenerate me? If you don't even believe it, if you feel like these pragmatic steps have to be taken, it really feels like it's the gospel and plus something else in a lot of respects.
There's no doubt it is. You know, if I sin against my wife or she sins against me, which is far more common, she would laugh. I'm telling you, she's probably watching this in the other room laugh. But anyway, and then she asks for forgiveness, or I ask forgiveness of her, and then I continually bring it up. I mean, I thought the scripture says that our sins are forgiven. They're as far as the east is from the west. They're in the depths of the sea. I mean, why is that not the same with these other things? Why do we have to continually be asking forgiveness? Now, of course, they'll say it's because the systemic stuff is still there. But I don't know. We are not applying the gospel right in this. It is extremely dangerous what we're teaching the next generation about. If we applied the gospel in our marriages the way they're applying the gospel in this category, you would never be able to live in peace and harmony with one another.
No, I mean, we're seeing that play out in the country, right? And that's coming into the church.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've been seeing a lot of conversations about Dr. Moore. Why I wanted to bring you on, because we, give him a hard time, and you're a big defender of him. And so, you did? No, sorry. But you did have a really interesting thread comparing some of the things he said.
Wait a minute, I'm Dr. White's coming through. Okay, go ahead.
I don't believe you until you start speaking Greek. Then I'll think Dr. White's in your earpiece. But you were comparing Dr. Moore and what he's talking about and how he says things about what's happening with the government and how they're ticketing, how they're treating the church, and you're comparing that with Albert Mohler. What are your thoughts about how the church is handling, just generally, not even specifically with the ERLC or Dr. Moore at first, but just generally, how do you think we're handling this situation?
Well, I think that most people are handling it fairly well. But I'm dealing with my own friends, even guys that I don't necessarily agree with theologically, and some of them politically. Mm-hmm. I think this has been a tough one to navigate in the short term. But the misapplication. I think what's surprising more than anything else is that people do not understand how to rightly interpret Scripture. The way they use Romans 13 is atrocious in how they're doing that. Mm-hmm. Then you have the whole issue of not even understand the laws of our land. That the Constitution is the highest law. That a magistrate doesn't have the authority to violate the Constitution. That's the law, and therefore that's what he should follow. That's what I should follow. So if you want to apply Romans 13, you can't say that Romans 13 means the governor of some state can do anything he wants to do, because that violates the Constitution. It's just ridiculous. Now, these same people wouldn't apply that to Donald Trump, but we'll talk about that another day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm extremely disappointed in how Dr. Moore has responded to this. I think that, and this ties in because I think a lot of churches need direction.
Mhm.
I think a lot of young guys out there, particularly that are in ministry, need direction in how to think through this. We've never had to think through this before, and it requires, there's some complexity to it. There's nuance to it.
Definitely.
And when you have nuance, that's one of the reasons we do, if we are going to have an ERLC, and we are going to have a Russell Moore, who's the head of the ERLC, this is when we need him the most.
Right.
And this is when he's in his basement telling us about his latest comic book collection. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's really hard
I love Dr. Moore as an individual. I was happy when he was elected. And my wife will tell you that 3 years ago when I was in Phoenix, my wife and I went up to him and said, we're so thankful for you in so many ways. And we are. We adopted our children, had a lot to do with Dr. Moore's book on adoption. So there's a lot of things I appreciate and love about Dr. Moore. So somebody wrote me this week and said, you just hate him. Why don't you shut up and go away? And I'm like, I don't hate him, but I'm deeply disappointed in him. I'm sorry, AD, you wanted to talk.
No, I was just gonna pig pile here a little bit, but I just find it amazing that I'm pretty sure that the first words that he said about the religious liberty stuff, at least that I remember, was like yesterday. And it's like, this has been going on for a few weeks now. Maybe he said something I didn't see. I'm not going to say that, but me and Matt were kind of joking, right when the coronavirus thing started getting attention, that the ERLC's big contribution was, Chinese racism in the wake of coronavirus. I mean, that's because whatever the mission of the ERLC is stated as being, it's not the actual mission. The mission is racism, social justice, immigration. That's the real mission. So it's like, it's disappointing on the one hand, but it's not that surprising because even though he's supposed to be focused on this exact topic, it's just a back burner issue for him at this point.
Yeah, I know this is going to be controversial, so you guys can separate yourself from it because I know you wouldn't want controversy.
I run towards controversy.
I'm going to run away again. I'll see.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I say this and I believe it. Little overstated, but still yet I believe there's a good parallel here. I believe Russell Moore is to the ERLC what Barack Obama was to becoming president of the United States. They both set out to radically transform those institutions.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying necessarily with every single piece of the same agenda, but Russell Moore came in and he wanted to radically transform what he felt Richard Land, the direction he took it. I had a problem with Richard Land. I wasn't a big fan of Richard Land. I don't like the Southern Baptist Convention being in the pocket of any political party. But I don't think that's what we're even doing now. So here's what Russell Moore has done so far, AD. He wrote when they thought that Trump was going, and I take it back, when Dan Patrick, our lieutenant governor, made the statement about the fact that, hey, I don't want to destroy our economy in the future for our children. And I'm 70 some years old. I would rather risk my life than have my kids lose everything for the future. Okay. Russell Moore wrote the next day an article attacking Dan Patrick's view on that. And that's the first thing he said about any of this crisis. The second thing he said was when I got on Twitter and did that, where are you, Dr. Moore? At the end of that day, he wrote his piece on, hey, yeah, there's some people doing some crazy things. Those wacko charismatics are out there. And there's a rare thing going on here and there, but it's mostly good. Let's keep it that way. That was the second article he came out with. And then all these other things happened. And that's when Dr. Moeller came out and spoke strongly against things. And Russell's not said a word until today. And I didn't hear what he said today. So what did he say today?
He said today that it's pretty much just governments having a misunderstanding about what churches are doing. And that for the most part.
Okay, stop. That's retarded. But go ahead.
I know. And the worst that's happened was Greenville. And then he said that really it just takes, or he said really the governments are appreciative of what the churches are doing and they are able to get to the community the way the government isn't able to do. And we should be thankful that there hasn't been more controversy and more confrontations between the church and the government.
It's ridiculous.
I know.
I mean, that's like saying we should be thankful that, you know, Hitler hasn't. I mean, I'm not comparing the two, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, how long does it take Godwin's rule? We made it. We made it. Boom. However many minutes we're to the Hitler argument. But seriously, that's so ridiculous. He wouldn't do that with anything else. I mean,
No.
he wouldn't do that with the issue of race. I mean, he wouldn't do that with the issue of, I don't think he would do that with the issue of if some preacher came out and bashed homosexuals, he would be all over that like stink on a pig. And I don't understand it.
But he did write a letter this week to Department of Homeland Security saying that they need to release the illegal immigrants being detained because of coronavirus. So he did do that. Which, you know, that honestly really frustrated me because I have a lot of friends and know people that are protesting abortion clinics right now who are still allowed to go into the clinic and kill your child. And the people that are getting arrested, people that are getting fined are the ones protesting, even though they're doing the social distancing and all that things. But they're still, the governments are allowing for the murder to continue, for people to come together. But so where's that letter?
Yeah, did he say anything? And maybe he has, but I haven't heard him say anything about the continued abortion going on. So, I mean, let's be honest. New York will kill more babies this week than all of the people that, well, maybe it takes 2 weeks now, but still yet it's not, it doesn't take them but a couple of weeks to kill everybody that's going to die in New York from that. Now, that doesn't diminish the lives of those people that died with COVID-19. Of course it doesn't. But it just shows it demonstrates what we truly care about. Russell Moore should be pounding the drum that abortion clinics are open. I didn't hear a word said about the court that got a staying order on Texas stopping abortion clinics from operating. So, I mean, it's clear he has a different agenda than I have. He has a different agenda than my church has. He has a different agenda than most Southern Baptists sitting in the pew have. His agenda is not our agenda. The man needs to resign, and he needs to be replaced with somebody who represents the Southern Baptist Convention, and he needs to go get a job somewhere where he can run his political platform from a group of people who are willing to pay him a salary that agree with his stuff. That's what I believe.
But why do that? But why do that if a group of people are willing to pay a salary when he does the exact opposite of what they would do?
Because we're idiots. But the bottom line is, the real truth is we're trusting people. Most Southern Baptist people in the pew, they don't members of the church, they don't have a clue of what's going on, and they're getting more educated more by more. But the trustee system is absolutely broken in the Southern Baptist Convention. Mm-hmm. The trustees think that they're there. I've had personal experience with it. I've written the ERLC trustees. They never responded to me. Never responded to me.
That's part of the game, though. Don't you know that's part of the game? Because then when you say something, they'll say, well, why didn't you come to us privately first?
Exactly. I've gone to him privately. I've sent them a letter. Our church, not on behalf of me, our church sent a letter where we voted to send a letter to the trustees. They never responded. Now, maybe they thought they did because they sent somebody from the ERLC to have a conversation with me to try to get me to not say anything on the floor of the convention. That didn't work. But, and I'm not going to say that. I'm just like, let's just tell the truth. They even told me, and I'm not going to tell who, but they came to tell me that they had offered up a particular person that I had issues with. And I think that I'm not saying the person that came to me wanted this, but I believe that the ERLC wanted me to feel appeased. Well, we took care of the situation you were concerned about. Listen, I'm not a headhunter. I'm not out to hunt people's heads. I want Russell Moore to eat and support his family on somebody else's dime. And if he wants to go up and fight for and lobby for all these type of progressive ideas, and if he really believes in his heart of hearts that the issue of illegal immigrants and issues happening at the border are equivalent to that of a pro-life issue, if that's what he really believes, more power to him. Go do it somewhere else. The North American Baptists could probably use you. Go work there.
And this might seem off topic altogether, but Donald Trump just recently pulled funding from the WHO, the World Health Organization. And I just think that's a whole remarkable...
Not the band, right?
Not the band. Yeah, their funding was pulled a long time ago. Okay. He finally pulled their funding because even though we're the biggest funder of that organization, they were in the pockets of China. And you have to realize and think that the only reason they were able to do that and acted that way is because they never thought that the United States would stop funding them, especially in a crisis like this, until Trump finally did it and said, okay, we're going to pull it even while we're evaluating and investigating what happened. And I think that's a lot of what's going to happen with the ERLC until they really believe that their funding can be pulled. If Russell Moore doesn't turn it around, nothing's going to change. I don't think.
Well, the trustees aren't going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and it's not just the ERLC. There are other institutions that I've dealt with that the trustees think that they're there to defend and support the institution and the head of that institution, when they're supposed to be there to answer to the local churches and to hold those guys accountable. I sat in the office of one of the heads of one of the institutions in the SVC who had done something absolutely atrocious to our church. Mm-hmm. And I said directly to him, you have forgotten who you work for. I don't work for you. You work for me. Until the Southern Baptist Convention and the pastors understand that, are willing to have the guts to say that to these guys and pull the money from them, never going to change.
No, it's not. And it's so crazy that there's such an elitist problem in the church at all. I mean, I guess it's human nature in a lot of respects, but that should be like the antithesis of any Christian, is an elitist mentality. It's really sad.
And that's where the secrecy thing comes in. Mm-hmm. So let's back up and talk about that for just a second. Okay. The secrecy thing is how they want to run everything without anybody really questioning them. The whole convention is set up that way. Let's get up and let one of these guys filibuster for 10 minutes and tell us how great and grand they are. Listen, Trump ain't got nothing on an entity head at the Southern Baptist Convention about bragging about what they do. You can quote me on that.
Yeah, well, it's on tape.
James White was right about you.
Well, that was James that said that. And listen, seriously, you go and we've done this and we've done that, and we're so great, and we're so wonderful. The cheerleaders come out and the pom-poms go and the fireworks go off. Now we've got 3.4 seconds for any questions that somebody'd like to ask. So we get up and we ask a question, and then they can filibuster again for the 10 minutes that they have. And nobody's better at that than Russell Moore. Go listen to him. He is a politician through and through. There's no doubt about that. That doesn't make him necessarily bad. It's just, I think he ought to go run for office in Washington rather than head the ERLC. But he gets up and he goes on and on and on, and you don't even get an opportunity to ask. There's no ability to have opportunity to have accountability, because that's how they set it up. And that's how they push things through. And they spiritualize it. So we got to have more preaching and more times of prayer. Hey, listen, I get that all the time. This is for business. Let's come here and let's get business done. Let's give the time to the convention business that we need. I don't need 50 more minutes of prayer time. I'm not saying prayer isn't important, but yet they do all this. Maybe not intentionally, but it certainly, the effect of it is that you don't have time to deal with the business you need to deal with. So what do you get? You get, okay, now we're going to lump all these resolutions together, including Resolution 9. I don't think there was any motive in that. I really don't. I think that it happened the way it happened because of how they manage everything. And it's an overall, we don't want any accountability, and we're just going to rush things through and get what we want. And it ended up just happening at a bad moment for them. I don't think they meant for that to happen the way it did, but it was convenient, but I don't think they planned it.
Interesting. So you're basically saying they're as incompetent as the government is.
Well, I don't know if they're as incompetent as the government is per se, but I do think they're as arrogant.
Yeah. Can I ask you, and I forgot who brought this up on Twitter. It was a couple of weeks ago. AD, you may be able to remember who this was, but he brought up a great contrast with the SBC when they were saying that every church in the SBC shouldn't meet, they should meet online. But then they canceled the convention and didn't even try to make an effort to do an online convention. And his question was simply like, why is it okay to meet online for church, but it's not okay to meet online in a convention to vote? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. I think that I'm a big, strong proponent of not wanting to set precedent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we need to care about going to the convention. I don't like what could happen where pastors, could have people come in, and stack it at the church and all these other things voting. I think we got to care enough to get off our pews and go to the convention and start saying something. If we're stupid enough to keep sending in our money and not going and hold them accountable, then we deserve what we got.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's me. I'm not a big fan on that. And that's the reason why it would be bad for the future. Same reason I'm not for mail-in voting, just because we got a coronavirus going around.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're hoping we go that route.
Oh, you
mail-in
talking about
voting.
the government? Yeah, no doubt.
Oh yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. So,
hey, they're stuffing ballots right now as we speak.
Yeah,
I know that in Florida, that happens a lot. Yeah. Okay. So let's switch topics to another controversy that you got yourself in. I don't know if it was just today or maybe it's been the last couple of weeks, but there's this
why do you act like I get in a lot of controversies?
Because I'm on your Twitter and I follow you. And I know
I spread a lot of love, brother. A lot of love.
He does. Listen, listen. Here's what I'll say about Tom. He does spread a lot of love. He does get into controversies from time to time, but then, like he said in the beginning, he takes a lot of heat for not, defriending and blasting people left and right, because that's very naive of him. He takes a lot of heat for that. I do as well, but I think Tom takes a lot more than that. And I definitely appreciate that. It's an example that I think a lot of people should follow.
Hey, listen, Sam Albury is a friend of mine. We have, yeah, exactly. He is. I like Sam a lot. We disagree on some issues, but I think some major issues even. And I wished he had left living out in a different way. I believe what he should have done is made a very clear exit, but he exited. And I'm still going to press him on issues and still do. But I just am not going to anathematize people as quickly as others do. I'm going to try to be wise as a serpent is as a dove. So what was it you said I got into today?
And before we talk about it further, I want to say that it is possible to be loving and controversial at the same time. I'm not saying that you're just this reckless person.
I would say these days it's actually impossible to truly be loving and not controversial.
Yeah, I agree.
There you go.
Hey, the funny thing is, I'm friends with Karen Pryor. I mean, she's mad at me a lot of the time. She may be mad at me right now. But I'm friends with Karen Pryor. I'm friends with Sam Albury. I'm friends with Dwight McKissick. I mean, I really am. And
McKissick blocked me.
So, well, then
that's not uncommon.
Who's the mean guy now?
Yeah, I know. Karen and I have gone back and forth a few times, and that's actually, I really appreciate that about her. That she is someone who engages with people a lot.
Karen's a sweet person.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's a lot of people that are sweet. When first time we had the issue in our friendship is when I came out and called for her resignation. We were friends. We're friends now. Our friendship survived that. I'll give that credit more to Karen than me because I'm the one saying you need to resign. Shows you what kind of person she is. But before I did it, I sent her my article and told her, I said, I'm going to go live with this. I want you to know I'm calling for your resignation. And it's not because I don't love you. I do love you as a friend, as a sister in Christ. I just don't want to be paying you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people I love I wouldn't hire.
Right. Like all my family. I would never hire them. But I love them.
So what today was about Susan Cadone. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Complementarian Thursday. That's what today is. And I just find this controversy interesting for a few reasons. One, all SBC people are complementarians, right? That's the official stance of the SBC.
Yes, it's in. I mean, the Baptist Faith and Message, Article 18, I think it is, of the BFM 2000 is clearly complementarian in flavor, if not directly. So,
but I saw you throw out the P word, that you are supporting of the patriarchy, and said that.
Oh, I think no. Let's be careful,
though. Oh, okay.
I didn't throw out the P word. Dr. Russell Moore threw out the P word in 2006. That's who threw out the P word.
Oh, what did Russell Moore say?
Picked up on, well, in Jets. You obviously haven't been following my tweets very carefully today. I quoted Dr. Moore from 2006.
He was a patriarchy guy back then.
It's like I said a few months ago. I said 2006 Dr. Russell Moore for SBC president. That's what I'm going for. I want 2006 Russell Moore. He was fantastic. I don't know what happened, but something did. But yeah, I don't have a problem though with patriarchy. In fact, I said something earlier. Somebody said complementarianism is bad when it gets wrapped up with biblical patriarchy. I said, what are you talking about? It's the same thing. What we're seeing right now, and this is what a good lesson that my dear friend Owen Strahan, John Piper, he's not a dear friend. I don't know John at all, but Owen's a wonderful man. I love him. Good friend. That may have ruined his career.
Definitely.
I don't know him. That's what we said earlier or later. But anyway, both of them should learn from this. And everybody in the CBMW, Denny Burke, all of them, what they need to understand is that what people hated was not, what patriarchy had, the muddiness that it had gotten over the years because it had been abused. What people hate is the biblical truth that biblical patriarchy actually stands for. Amen. And that's why they hate complementarity as much as they hated biblical patriarchy. These people woke up and say, wait a minute. It's the same definition. I hate it too. That's what we're dealing with. So Susan Cadone, who is on the ERLC Leadership Council, who, well, I'm going to be careful here. I don't know her very well, but I do know enough about her from what she says that there are serious issues. She hates complementarianism, it appears. I think she suffered abuse in her life. I think that's been a public issue. And and listen, that's awful. That's terrible. Yeah. And it is hard for people, I've found, in counseling people throughout the years of 25 years of ministry. It's hard for individuals who have been abused to not, it's kind of like somebody that gets saved because they walked an aisle and they think everybody's got to walk an aisle, has got to get saved. So they fall in love with the altar call. Okay. On the flip side of that, people that have been abused and they got abused where somebody took a system or a biblical truth and used that truth and twisted it, as all sin does, to abuse someone, they kind of have the same opposite negative reaction towards that. And so when they see anything that smells like that, sniffs like that, sounds like that, whatever it may be, they're repulsed by it. But the problem is somebody needs to help her. Honestly needs to help her. I reached out to somebody today in the ERLC and said, you need to help her. You need to help her process this. You need to help her deal with whatever level of bitterness that is there so that the gospel can heal that. And she won't hate that which God has designed. And so I use the illustration of motherhood. Are there mothers there are mothers that abuse and murder their children, right? So do we say that motherhood should be rejected? That motherhood's bad? No, that's God's design. Are there people that abuse patriarchy, biblical patriarchy? Of course they do. I mean, in fact, this is no secret. God told us in Genesis 3, for crying out loud. He told us that this is going to be abused. That there was going to be the ruling over the woman, and on the opposite side, feminism, radical feminism on the other side. God told us exactly what the twisting is going to look like. So that's, if you'll notice in my controversies, if you'll follow me, they're the issues that I speak out on. I've been speaking out a little bit recently about some political stuff, but that's because of the fact we're in the middle of what we're dealing with how churches are being treated. Yeah. But I speak out on the issue of complementarity. I speak out on the issue of same-sex attraction, homosexuality, because these are issues that are going on in the Southern Baptist Convention. And I talk about the issue of Resolution 9 stuff, so social justice stuff. I don't get in, and I do it in the realms of my own convention. So I'm not, there's all kind, listen, there's so much crazy stuff on Twitter that if all I did was get into controversies, the problem, you know what the real problem is? And I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it right now. Here's the real problem. The real problem is not that Tom Buck likes to get into every little battle that goes on in the convention. The real problem is there's so much junk going on right now in the convention that I have to say anything. You know what I'd love to do? I'd love to go back and just do what I was doing for my entire ministry, pastor my church, love my people, and lead. But as long as my church is giving money to the Southern Baptist Convention, and as long as we're going to continue to be a part of the convention and fund this junk, I'm going to speak out against it. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say what needs to be said, and truth is going to be what I talk about. And if my church ever votes to get out of the Southern Baptist Convention, then we'll leave. So maybe Wrestlemore and all these other people need to come and join my church and vote us out of the convention, and I'll shut up. Sorry.
No, don't. That's great. I can tell you're a preacher. So we got no, it's good. It's going to be great for the ratings. We have about 10 minutes left. And one thing that I really did want to have you on is something that we've been talking about over the past couple of shows is what happens now with, as far as the churches haven't been meeting. From our perspective, we've been saying that the church has really been taking the lead from the government on how and when to conduct worship services. And it seems like we just have like this misunderstanding with just how each of these authorities should work and how they should respect each other, and where their boundaries are. These issues at the convention is, how do we straighten all this out? Like, what would be your advice to us who are looking for, like, what do we do so this stuff doesn't happen again?
Well, I think we're going to be right back here in the fall. I hope I'm wrong. But I think we are to live as kingdom citizens, first and foremost. So God's business is what we're to be about. We need to be living as those who fundamentally are a part of God's kingdom. Then we also need to understand our own citizenship, earthly citizenship, so that we can leverage that whenever needed for the good of the gospel. We want to live quiet lives, as Scripture says. Paul talked about living peaceably, quietly. We don't want to be rattling our sabers all the time. And that's why, I want to be able to not be, at war with my governmental leaders. I try to do everything I can to be able to be at peace and go along with all the things I can go along with. But there is a time to leverage even your citizenship, as Paul did in leveraging his Roman citizenship. Yeah. And he made them do what they should do and were required to do by what their own government issued. So I think that when we say, hey, we got a constitutional right, we're not being rebellious. I liken that to what Paul did with his Roman citizenship. He said, you don't have a right to do this. You got to do this because this is what the law is. Mm-hmm. And I think we should do the same thing. So every Christian should be speaking out against what the New Jersey governor said last night, that I talked about early this morning and late last night. That guy says it's above his pay grade. Well, that's why I said all you needed to do was watch Schoolhouse Rock as a kid. I mean, this isn't difficult to understand. So Christians need to get educated on our own government. If you're going to apply Romans 13, you need to understand what the law is and so forth and so on. Now, on the other side, I do think that we do need to do everything we can when our government, and particularly our local government, is trying to do these steps that are precautionary because there's a real danger. So our church has complied with that. There are things I don't agree with that I would have done differently if I were in control. I think that's a Romans 13, but nobody has asked us they haven't asked us to do anything that they haven't asked everybody else to do. And so Richard Baxter said that when the magistrates make a law during a time of pestilence or whatsoever, but in America, it has to be equal across the board. I do have problems with the liquor stores being open, and I speak out against that. If I can drive through and get a bottle of whiskey, as a Baptist, I don't do that. But if I can drive through and get a bottle of whiskey and not have to practice social distancing, why can't I do some of those same things at the church? So I just think we were caught off guard. We never dreamed anything like this would happen. And we don't have good voices other than, hey, listen, hats off to Dr. Moeller. I don't care what, I mean, there are people that don't like what Dr. Moeller does about X, Y, and Z. I love that man. I thank God for him in so many ways. I tip my hat to him for how he has spoken out about this. People say he has other motives. I don't know. I can't read his heart. But what I can read is what he said. And he has spoken loud and clear on this issue. So anyway, what do you guys think that we should do?
AD?
What should we do about Al Mohler?
No, what should we? No, what should we do about as we go forward, thinking about how separation of church and state and all these type of things?
Oh yeah, well, I'll say this. So, so my church is not meeting right now, and I told my pastor I supported his decision in that regard. But we really do need to figure out who has the authority over the matters of the church, and in what circumstances is there flexibility and maybe some overlap or things like that. I think you're right, Tom, that we just haven't had to think about this. There are plenty of people who have had to think about this in other parts of the world and things like that. But we can't be caught with our pants down again. Like I'm trying to give as much slack to as many people as possible. One thing I cannot give slack though is the pastors that are cheering on other pastors being arrested. I give no slack for that. But for the disagreements here, we weren't prepared. And that's understandable, but we need to be prepared for next time because, the new flu season is right around the corner.
Well, and I've talked to some pastors that weren't meeting that could meet.
Yeah.
And because they had a low enough number and they didn't. Yeah. That's troublesome to me.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of the reasons given were, not, I won't, they wouldn't say fear, but, it was one of them said if somebody gets sick and then the perception is they got it here. These people are going to Walmart for crying out loud. Nothing will get you more sick than going to Walmart. Have you seen who's in Walmart?
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, sorry.
I'll even explain a little bit about our church's situation. So it's a very small community, mostly elderly, and it's a ski town, which means that a bunch of New Yorkers come every weekend. And they're just our population of that town, in particular town, like triples or quadruples in size with a bunch of New Yorkers. And so there was a concern that if someone caught it from New York, because obviously, we're not that worried about, Rutland, Vermont being a hot spot. But there was some concern there. And so, the pastor called me to explain him. I think he kind of anticipated that I would be against it. So he wanted to personally tell me about it. But I supported it. I mean, it made sense what he said. Everything made sense. But what doesn't make sense is, Vermont just didn't consider us an essential service. So we guess we just can't do it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But, again, right. I'm trying to give a lot of leeway on this, especially considering there's a lot of people that I really respect that have the opposite view of it as I do. So we got to hash this out at some point. That's my opinion. I agree with you. We just weren't ready for it.
Well, we're an essential. Luckily, in Texas, we were considered. I think in Florida too, an essential business or whatever.
Yep.
But I do think this. I think they violated the Constitution anyway.
Yes, definitely.
There's no doubt in my mind that they did, because we have the right to assemble. And we have the right to worship. And I think I pointed out even the way we worship, there's the wording in the Constitution there is pretty strong. And I don't think when you let people go to Walmart and Burger King, they can make the choice whether they want to go to church.
Yep.
And churches are going to be smart enough to make the right decision. And if they aren't, and people get sick, they're going to learn from that too.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there are going to be people that are affected, but that's the price of freedom, to one degree or another. So there's no doubt in my mind they violated the Constitution and what they did. I know people argue that the Commerce Clause and all that, but
the magical Commerce Clause,
right?
That means anything that you want it to mean,
right? Yeah, you just exactly. So, but that being said, I think they were caught off guard. Are there some bad players in this in the government? Of course there are. I just don't know who they are. I have some suspicions, but I think at the end of the day that there's a lot of good men and women who got caught here. I think, let me say this real quick. I think part of what we're going to have to deal with in the church in the coming months is discipling our own people.
Amen.
Yeah.
Because when everything gets opened up again, I think there are going to be a myriad of people who want to stay home because they're fearful. And if somebody's listen, my daughter has immune deficiency. She was born with the George syndrome, 23q. So I'm saying all that just say that, I'm not just making this up. Because people would say I was. She's had multiple open heart surgeries. She doesn't have a thymus gland, so that produces your whatever for your immune system. I say all that to say she's at real risk.
Yeah.
So somebody like that, I understand keeping them away, keeping them at home. But what did I tell? Let me tell you what I told my wife. Okay. And I told my other pastors. I said, we're going to minister, because early on they were saying that we couldn't go visit. This is before, they were dealt with that. They said, if somebody gets sick, you can't go visit them. And I said, over my literal dead body, because I will go visit them. And I told my wife, I said, if that means that I have to be quarantined and can't be with my family, I'm going to do it. Because there are people. What is it with these guys? Could we send any of men off today to war to leave their family?
Right, it's a heavy mantle that you pastors are wearing, man.
Well, and the thing is, listen, you deal with even young pastors today. They've been taught in seminary all these years that family is the most important thing. I got news for you. It's not. The gospel of Jesus Christ and being a herald of the gospel. Now, that doesn't mean we sacrifice family, but we swung the pendulum the other direction. Because if men were willing to leave their families and go off to war for months in order to win freedom for our country, then I don't have to be home every night to bathe my children and diaper them in order to have some type of a balance in my home with my wife. Sure. My job sometimes means I have to leave my family and sacrifice things for the greater good of my country and for the greater good of the church. So part of the problem is we've got a lot of wimpy guys that are in the pulpit that have been taught for years that, listen, you need a church that doesn't work you more than 40 hours, so you can be home every night and have a 50-50 whatever at home with your wife. Now, my wife will tell you that I help serve at home. I cooked dinner tonight. Okay. So I did that.
You're not a very good patriarchy guy.
Yeah,
I know.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
But at the end of the day, it is my responsibility to lead in those ways. So anyway, I didn't mean to get into all that, but I think that's going to be a lot of what's going on. And in all of this is helping our people know how to not be fearful and live out the truth of the gospel.
Yeah. I think the issue too is not just that we have wimpy people in the pulpit, is we have a lot of disqualified people in the pulpit as well. I'm not talking about specifically the SBC, just American churches as well.
I wasn't either.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I don't know how much you know about me, but I'm not the Reformed guy. I grew up in Calvary Chapel. So I had a biblical foundation, but a lot of the
sorry.
I don't even want to ask what that was. But one of the things
I was
exiting. Oh, okay. One of the things I've been learning being on the Presbyterian Reform Network, Fight Laugh Feast, and getting to know Reformed people is the spheres of authority. And that has been something that's been really helpful for me. I don't know if that's something that's common with all Reformed people or not, because again, I'm not Reformed. But that's been really helpful for me to understand, God has given you certain responsibilities for yourself. Then you have certain responsibilities for the family, the church has certain responsibilities, and the government has certain responsibilities that God has given, and that can be pulled out of scripture. And I think learning those things and creating a matrix, and part of what you're saying, discipleship, having to teach people what your government's role is, what your government's function is in the United States specifically, if you live there, what is your church's role? What is your obligation as the head of your family as far as health? Protecting your kids, like your daughter, for example, you need to make certain decisions as the head of your household that the church shouldn't have to make for you. But there's so many people in the church, American church, at least in my experience, where there's no discipleship, there's no understanding of these kinds of responsibilities. And I think that's part of why it's been so bad that we've gotten caught off guard, is we've had no matrix to fall back on to make decisions and figure things out. We have nothing.
No, I agree with you. And I think, again, as I said earlier, had Paul not understood his own Roman citizenship, it would have been a little bit different story. Obviously, we know that God's sovereign, but God was sovereign for him to understand over him understanding the political world in which we lived, and we need to understand that too. But there's not we think too much with our emotions today instead of logically thinking things out, and that's the rule of the day on Twitter and everywhere else in the church, wherever it is. And it's going to be the downfall of our churches if we continue to be, because a lot of that's a lot of what's driving this, the way people are responding to this coronavirus and how churches are responding, is it's emotion driven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Even from the pulpit.
Amen. Well, that's a perfect place to end. Tom Buck.
Tom, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
I love coming on. You guys are fun.
We're going to invite you back.
Come back now that I know that you're not Reformed, man. But wait, that fell out. Dr. White. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, Dr. White doesn't even talk to me. He doesn't acknowledge me.
He likes to pretend he's not Reformed, because if he admits that he is, then we have to change the name of the show.
Yeah, he just said he'd like to debate you.
I may not be Reformed, but I'm not a fool either. So we're doing that.
You mentioned Calvary Chapel, that went off.
Yes. You have to watch James White's content on Calvary Chapel. It's great.
Gosh, you guys are a bunch of haters, man. I'll tell you.
I like Calvary Chapel, and so does
obviously
James. They create a lot of Calvinists.
No, I've got two good Calvary pastor friends in this area.
Oh, so. Good. Well, hey, Tom, is there anything you can promote? We should have probably done this in the beginning. Are you selling a book? Have anything? No.
And you got to write a book, sell a book. I got a copy of my dissertation I'd sell you, but on that,
make that an ebook.
Yeah, exactly. But it ain't worth it. The paper would be printed on. But just the G3 workshops, honest to goodness, if guys would go look at that, the G3 workshops, I don't make any, I'm not making money off of this. It's not a profit. It's not even a profit thing for G3. I'm telling you, it isn't. I think we charge $119 or something like that for a workshop. It's almost nothing. It just covers their expenses to do stuff. But these workshops are so beneficial. I started 11 years ago doing these type of workshops. It's changed my ability in handling the Word of God for the better. And I learn and grow under it. And so, anyway, I encourage guys to go to the G3 website and look at those workshops. It's worth your time. It'll be the best 2 days that you've invested for your ministry. You strengthen your pulpit, you're strengthening your people.
Amen. Amen. We'll put a link in that in the show notes. Follow Tom at Tom Buck on Twitter. Look for the buck. And
no, it's a doe right now. You know that, right?
Oh, it's a doe. No, I'm not a hunter. I grew up in California, so I don't know anything.
Let me tell you before you leave, just real quick. The reason I changed from a buckhead to a doe is because I read that women are not as highly impacted by the coronavirus, and so I'm self-identifying as a doe during the season.
Oh.
That is the real reason I did that.
Oh, all right. There you go. Tom, thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.